Have you ever counted how many times per day you check your phone? It's probably more times than you'd like to admit. In today's digital world, our phones have become a lifeline, almost a part of our identities. In fact, it's estimated that people spend an average of 7 hours a day on their phones. Yes, you heard it right. 7 hours. The concept of screen time has become a hot topic of discussion, and for good reason. This isn't just about calling or texting anymore. From socializing and shopping to learning and working, our phones cater to every aspect of our lives. The average time spent on social media alone is staggering, with hours ticking away as we scroll and tap. But here's a question to ponder. Is it possible that our constant phone usage could be more than a simple habit? Could it in fact be an addiction? As it turns out, this constant checking might be more than just a habit. It could be an addiction. Do you ever feel like your phone is taking over your life? It's a question that many of us may have asked ourselves as we've found our daily routines increasingly dominated by screen time. The effects of excessive phone usage are becoming a matter of growing concern, impacting various aspects of our lives. Consider our social interactions. With our noses buried in our phones, we're often oblivious to the world around us. Conversations are interrupted, meals are eaten without savoring, and the beauty of a sunset is missed. We're physically present, but mentally we're miles away, scrolling through a digital reality. Then there's productivity, the constant pinging of notifications, the endless scrolling through feeds, the lure of one more level in a mobile game. They all chip away at our focus, turning what could have been a productive day into hours of digital distraction. But perhaps the most alarming impact is on our mental health. The dopamine rush from likes and comments, the comparison with others' seemingly perfect lives, the echo chambers that amplify our biases. These elements of social media can lead to feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and depression. Moreover, the intentional design of these platforms, with infinite scrolling and tailored content, maximizes user engagement, making it harder for us to put our phones down. The effects of this addiction can be far-reaching, impacting not only our daily life, but also our mental well-being. It's time we acknowledge the elephant in the room and strive for a healthier relationship with our screens. But what makes social media so addictive, you may ask? Well, a lot of it comes down to the way our brains work. When we engage with social media, we're not just passively scrolling, we're seeking. We're seeking validation, connection, entertainment, and information. And when we find these things, our brain rewards us with a little hit of dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure. However, dopamine is not just about pleasure, it's about anticipation and reward. It rises in anticipation of a happy event or reward, and it's this anticipation that keeps us coming back for more. So, when you see that you've received a like on your latest post or a friend request, your brain gives you a dopamine hit, reinforcing the desire to keep engaging with social media. But it's not all about the dopamine. The design of social media platforms plays a significant role in their addictiveness. Features like infinite scrolling and tailored content are intentionally created to maximize user engagement. The infinite scroll keeps you engaged by always offering something new just to scroll away. Tailored content, on the other hand, is based on your previous interactions and preferences, ensuring that the content you see is always interesting and relevant to you. While these features might seem convenient, they're actually designed to keep you hooked. This is known as the stickiness factor of social media. The stickier the platform, the harder it is for us to pull away. Moreover, the addictive nature of social media is not just about the time we spend on these platforms. It's also about the impact it has on our mental health. Studies have shown that excessive use of social media can lead to feelings of insecurity, depression, and even radicalization due to echo chambers and the comparison of filtered lives. So, it's not just about the quantity, but also the quality of the time spent on social media. The more we use it, the more we get stuck in a cycle of seeking, receiving, and wanting more. The addictive nature of social media is not accidental, but rather a result of intentional design. And understanding this is the first step towards breaking free from the addictive cycle of social media. How does social media addiction compare to other types of addictions? This is a question that many of us might ponder as we scroll through our news feeds, mindlessly liking and sharing content. It's easy to dismiss social media addiction as a lesser evil compared to substance abuse or gambling. But the reality is much more complex. Similar to other addictions, social media addiction is driven by dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with motivation and reward. Imagine the thrill you feel when you get a new follower or a wave of likes on your post. That's dopamine at work, giving you a hit of pleasure. But here's the catch. Dopamine doesn't just rise in response to a reward, it also spikes in anticipation of one. This is why the mere thought of checking your notifications can be so irresistible. Now let's compare this to a substance addiction. Drugs like cocaine and methamphetamine also trigger a dopamine rush. Over time, the brain adjusts to these high levels of dopamine by producing less of it, or by reducing the number of receptors that can receive signals. As a result, the person needs to take more of the substance to experience the same high. This is called tolerance, and it's a common characteristic of all addictions. The same principle applies to social media addiction. The more likes, shares, and comments we get, the more we crave them. We constantly seek new content and validation, leading to an endless loop of scrolling and posting. It's a vicious cycle that's hard to break, remarkably similar to the patterns seen in other forms of addiction. Furthermore, the ease of access to social media platforms and the immediate gratification they provide make them particularly addictive. Unlike activities that offer delayed rewards, such as studying or building a business, social media gives us instant feedback and validation. This can make it even harder to resist the allure of our digital feeds. In conclusion, while social media addiction may not have the same physical manifestations as substance abuse or gambling, it shares many of the same underlying mechanisms. Just like other addictions, social media addiction can be destructive and difficult to overcome. So what role does dopamine play in all of this? To answer that, let's first understand what dopamine is. Dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter, a chemical messenger that transmits signals in the brain and other vital areas. It's often recognized for its role in pleasure, but that's a common misconception. Dopamine is more accurately tied to motivation and reward. It's the anticipation of a reward, not the reward itself, that causes dopamine levels to rise in our brain. Now consider how this relates to social media. Every time we post, share, or comment, we anticipate a reward, perhaps a like, a share, or a positive comment. This anticipation causes a surge in dopamine, driving us to engage more and more with social media platforms. But there's a twist. The same surge in dopamine that motivates us also plays a part in developing addiction. Here's how. Our brain is wired to repeat activities that release dopamine, reinforcing the action that led to the reward. Over time, the brain starts needing more stimuli to experience the same level of dopamine release, leading to a cycle of constant desire for engagement, be it more likes, more shares, or more comments. This pattern in dopamine release and the need for increased stimuli over time is strikingly similar to what happens in other forms of addiction, like gambling or substance abuse. The more we engage with the addictive behavior, the more dopamine we need to feel the same level of satisfaction, leading to a vicious cycle. Social media platforms are designed to maximize this dopamine-driven user engagement. Features like infinite scrolling, tailored content, and instant notifications are all intended to keep us hooked, anticipating the next reward. And with social media always at our fingertips, the ease of access and immediate gratification make it even more addictive. But here's the catch. As we become more accustomed to the dopamine highs from social media, our brain adjusts and starts producing less dopamine. This is known as dopamine desensitization. The result? We need even more stimulation to get the same pleasure, leading us down a path of increased usage, and in severe cases, addiction. The consequences can be severe, impacting our mental health, relationships, and even our perception of reality. With increased exposure to the filtered lives of others, we may start to feel insecure or depressed, comparing our lives to the highlights we see on social media. But all is not lost. By understanding how dopamine works and recognizing the signs of potential addiction, we can take steps to limit our social media usage. This might mean setting boundaries like dedicated screen-free times or using apps that track and limit usage. Understanding dopamine and its role in addiction can help us recognize the signs and take steps to limit our social media usage. Ever heard of the hedonic treadmill? It's a psychological concept that suggests our level of happiness tends to revert back to a baseline, no matter what we experience in life. Imagine running on a treadmill, trying to reach happiness at the end, but no matter how fast you run, it remains just out of reach. Now, how does it relate to social media addiction? Well, let's consider how we feel when we post something on social media. That first like or share brings a sense of gratification, a rush of joy. But as time goes on and we get more likes and shares, that initial happiness starts to fade. We start to expect more interactions to feel the same level of happiness. This, my friend, is the hedonic treadmill in action. We're constantly chasing new experiences, new posts, new interactions to maintain or increase our level of happiness. But the more we experience, the more we need to feel the same level of joy. And this is where the danger lies. We become hooked, needing more and more to keep us on that treadmill, running towards an elusive happiness. It's a vicious cycle, one that social media platforms exploit. They are designed to keep us scrolling, posting, interacting, all in pursuit of that fleeting feeling of happiness. The hedonic treadmill explains why we can't sustain the same level of happiness from repeated experiences or achievements on social media. What makes social media even more addictive? Well, let's dive into two major risk factors: ease of access and speedy rewards. Social media platforms are readily available at our fingertips, and this ease of access makes it all too simple for us to indulge in a quick scroll or a swift post. Our smartphones, a gateway to the digital world, are almost always within arm's reach, further fueling this addiction. On the other hand, the instant gratification provided by these platforms plays a significant role in their addictive nature. The speedy rewards, such as likes, shares, or comments, provide an immediate sense of achievement and validation. This rapid cycle of action, reward, and repetition is what keeps us hooked, as we constantly seek out our next dopamine hit. Recognizing these risk factors can help us understand why we find it so hard to put our phones down.